Hey, good afternoon, everyone. I just want to take some time to give you a little bit more information about the collaborative inquiry project, the independent design task. I've already suggested to you sort of what that project's about, and you're in the process right now of finalizing your outline for that project. But I think it's only fair to sort of reinforce for you the types of things I'm looking for with that project. So regardless of whether you're part one, part two, or in the specialist course, the rubric that we use to take a look at how you did is the same for everyone. So I'm going to pull this up here, and you'll notice that there are three main things I'm looking for. One is I'm looking for it to be interdisciplinary. That is, for it to involve more than one subject area. And there are some kind of arguments for how high school folks may be limited and might want to just specialize in their subject area. If they're a science teacher, a math teacher, a history teacher, just focus on that one thing. But I'm going to push back on that a little bit and suggest to you that any subject is called to teach literacy at the very least. So being familiar with the English language expectations of the curriculum at the high school for the grade you're teaching is a good idea. And if you look at the OLC, the Ontario Literacy course, a lot of those expectations can easily be woven into just about any activity you do. Beyond that, I'm encouraging you to try to make learning as relevant as you can by choosing a real world problem that can be looked at. Now, if someone said to me, "Hey, Rod, what about if we look at the reality of school being a really different kind of thing? Is that a problem we could look at as a task related?" Sure. Is there something related to distant learning or COVID-19 or something that is totally in the news every day, that is totally the way we're living our lives? Could that be part of the problem? Of course it could. Barring that, I'm calling on you to look at a global topic in part one, in particular the sustainability goals that the United Nations put out. These are big real world issues that everyone should be familiar with. So use that as a starting point and think about how the curriculum can be woven to look at poverty, for example, or clean water, or sustainable air. These are things that every student's going to have to live with their whole life. So what if school found a way to teach science that was rooted in that, and mathematics maybe that was rooted in that, or had them do writing or media production that was all rooted in those real world problems? That's what I'm calling on you to do. If you're a math specialist or science specialist in secondary, it's kind of more difficult for you to realistically meet expectations of different curriculum. But I'm going to nudge you and say, hey, find at least English curriculum and the expectations that fit with what you're doing. If you can go out on a limb and say, do something with a different subject area entirely, look at media studies courses or visual arts courses and look at expectations where students are creating a piece of media, that you can meet those expectations, by all means include those. If you look at the rubric again, one of the things I'm looking for is that it's interdisciplinary, that it addresses multiple subject areas. So if you're only doing one subject area, that's fine and it'll be useful to you, but I'm not going to be able to score you high on the rubric. The other thing we're looking for is the projects to be differentiated. So we want students to have different entry points. We don't necessarily want every student to have to do the same thing, or if all students are doing similar patterns of activities, we don't want them all to be written. We don't want them all to be drawing. We don't want them all to be dramatic. We want to be a mix of those things. And ideally, if you do a rich project that is a group project, you'd have members of the group take on roles and responsibilities that are interdependent. That is, the group project is better, there's a word called synergy out there that means if different elements come together to make the whole better, then it's got that synergy. And what we're looking for is that interdependence. So one person's role is dependent on another's, and they all sort of rely on one another in order to make the whole thing better. Let me give you just a brief example. If you're going to do a project about, let's say you're working on water systems, and you want to develop a new tool for cleaning water, making it clear. You might have one person in the group be responsible for leadership, making sure people have their different things done. A person in a group might be responsible for the written component, and maybe they're writing out the plans as they are. Maybe someone in the group is the PR person who's got to do advertising and publicize and promote the final product. Someone might be a design expert, and the design expert might have to draw rendered drawings of what that final product's actually going to look like. If each person has their role, the designer, the artist, the language person, the leader, all of those different components, you're the only one responsible for designing, you're the only one responsible for maybe script writing with the support of your team, then you kind of have to pull your weight in order for the whole thing to work out. That's what I mean by interdependent. And you get that synergy. If everyone does what they should do, you get a final product that no one person could accomplish. Ideally, those roles would allow students to pick things they're good at. So if you're a good artist, you lean towards the things that are maybe designing, drawing, working with media. Some of the kids in your group might be really good at, say, using technology, and maybe they're using Minecraft or PowerPoint to put the ideas together. Or maybe they're doing coding. Other students in the class might be good at language, and maybe they're the ones that would write the script for the presentation or would help decide who's going to say what in what order. That leader, really, their job would be find out what everyone's good at so that they have a role that fits their niche and ability. If you do that and create a project that has group elements for a real-world problem that is tied to different areas of curriculum, ideally different subject areas of curriculum in a common grade, then you'll be hitting the expectations for this rubric in spades. The one other bonus thing I'm going to push you to is to think about how that final product and this real-world problem they're trying to solve, can you find an audience for that work beyond you yourself as a teacher? I'm a firm believer that too much work goes to teacher and then back to student, and that's the end of it. It's over. But what if students knew there was going to be an audience for their work, whether it was the classroom across the hall or down the hall, or a bunch of kids in the cafeteria coming to see their work? What if it was going online somewhere so that other people could see it? Maybe there was a component, and I know the part twos are called to have their students create a piece of media. So if you have students tag team on media, someone maybe being a director, someone being an actor, someone responsible for props and costumes, someone responsible for script writing, and they come together and create this thing, what if they had other people seeing it and commenting on it and sharing it on social media? How might that product become much more engaging for them to complete if they knew they had that real world audience for it? So that's one of the things I'm going to challenge you to do beyond the expectations in this rubric, is to think about how can that product that the kids create find a wider audience beyond the classroom. It's entirely up to you. That's a sort of a short message, just letting you know what I'm looking for as you're writing those final outlines. And as colleagues, what the next thing is for you each to suggest and push one another and help out with what subject areas might make that project richer, with what types of products or roles students might take on to try to complete in this project. This is where your expertise is not all by yourself, but you got some group mates there to help you out. In the case of if you're all by yourself, an individual in the group, maybe I can nudge you a little bit, but largely you're going to be on your own to try and figure that out. So those products are due later in the course, but you're going to be working on it simultaneously as you're working on the group project, which is due on the 20th. So you got a lot of things going on. The Module 3 template, that self-assessment piece, is due on the 20th, and the final products that your group designs, they're going to go in that final products discussion. When you're in the middle of the course, you got to expect to be busy, and that's certainly what we are. Any questions or comments, put them in the Q&A discussion. Carry on. We're doing a lot in a short amount of time.